on the Paint by Big Country Equipment.
Welcome to another episode of That's Hard on the Paint by Big Country Equipment. Today's guest is Sterling Fryar. Great name, by the way.
Yeah, 2 Sterlings and a Harrison.
I'm outvoted.
Man, thanks for coming on our little podcast and, just start off kind of tell us who you are and your background and.
So, Sterling Fryar. I'm a commercial farm and ranch appraiser, broker, property tax consultant, investor, kind of a little bit of everything in the real estate. It's all I've ever known. It's all I've ever been good at.
Where are you from?
I'm born and raised here in San Angelo. Went to A&M, spent a little too much time there, and then moved back. Met my wife in College Station, moved back, and we've been here since 2010. So,
is it mostly residential or ranch real estate, commercial real estate?
As far as what I do, mainly commercial farm and ranch. My wife, I have a team of 5-6 people. They handle most of the residential. But whenever it gets into the farm and ranch stuff, that's kind of my specialty.
Now, you grew up ranching, agriculture's background.
Correct.
And cattle, sheep, goats, what
yes.
was it? All of it? All the above?
Horses, all the things.
The goats were your favorite, huh?
Goats were my favorite. The dumber, the better.
So, go ahead, Harrison.
So, in real estate, we've seen an election. We saw that real estate had dropped numbers. People weren't really buying before elections, which is pretty common. Now that the election's over, do you see it being more prominent now? Or?
Yes. Since the election, it seems like everybody's attitude, just outlook on life in general, especially in our part of the world, it was a bit of a relief in understanding where we're going or could go, and whatever way you politically lean, it doesn't, whenever it comes to real estate, we need buyers and we need sellers. And people weren't buying or selling. 2024 was rough. Mm-hmm. I mean, I think our business was down 60%.
So are we going to see, going into 25 and the next 4 years, are we going to see land prices on a rise? Or are we going to see kind of stay level on land prices? Or you see
historically, and I say historically, but say the last 3 years, even in a down economy, we've still seen price increases. We may see longer days on market, which we have seen, and that was the trend for 24. We've recently started seeing price reductions, and I feel like some of these new agents that came in 2021, 2022, it's like, hey guys, this is what a price reduction looks like. And people are actually having to work, which is not a lot of fun for some people.
Yeah. They're not taking bids and they're just running with the first
Correct.
bid. Yeah.
No, we're not. There's still some multiple offer situations, but by and large, we're back to standard negotiation and, come to terms with both buyer and seller willing to accept.
So us being in what would be considered short-term finance, we've seen rates kind of drop and then kind of go back up. Mm-hmm. We saw that short-term financing is a little bit safer for banks right now, where long-term financing, they don't really quite know what's going to happen.
Sure.
Or is that what you're seeing in the real estate?
Not really. The rates, there was this big hope that in June 25 we would see a rate decrease, and now the new reports that are out are saying we're not going to see a decrease. It'll hopefully remain flat, but our 52-year average on an interest rate on a 30-year fixed is, I think, 7.52. So, you have the people that have bought houses or properties in the 80s, and they'll tell you, whenever I bought my first house, it was 13%. And we thought it was a deal. Mm-hmm. And so, we have this recency bias with the 3% and the 2% and everything. I mean, personal opinion, I don't think we will ever see that in our lifetime. Yeah.
I hope not. That's like, the older folk stories, walking uphill both ways kind of deal.
Yeah.
I also think it was probably less to purchase a house, even with the 13% interest rates. But when you were growing up, was real estate something that you wanted to do? Did you know that's the business you wanted to be in?
I had no idea. Whenever I went to A&M, I got in for agriculture economics, and then I backtracked to general studies. And at A&M, you can only be in general studies for 2 years, and then you got to declare a major. Like, you got to grow up.
That's no fun.
Shocker.
Yeah.
And so my mom's best friend, or one of her best friends, is a real estate appraiser out of Navasota. and she met up with us for dinner. She started talking about appraisal and the research process and all the things that go into an appraisal. And I was like, man, that sounds interesting to me. So I get back in agriculture economics, focus in finance and real estate, and I start taking real estate classes. And people laugh whenever I tell them this. It's one of those deals where you walk in and you're just good at it, and you go, why are y'all having problems with this? It clicked for me. And I wish that would have worked for like engineering or something like that. But here we are. But no, I mean, I had no idea. So I started in appraisal. I'm 17 years in. Spent a lot of long nights at the office and getting better and getting faster at that. And then I needed 21 hours to get my ring. And so I took real estate classes at Blinn that counted towards my hours. And so I got my real estate license while I was in college and got my ring and all the things. And it wasn't until we moved back that I really started looking at the brokerage side of things. And that's a lot of fun. Appraisal's great. I'm a data-driven person, but the sales, you get to deal with different people, different personalities, good or bad. The behavioral economic side of things is fascinating to me. How does somebody react to something? And that makes it fun every single day. It's something different every day.
That's the deal that wakes you up in the morning and you're looking forward to work.
Absolutely.
Was there a point in the beginning or the middle where you were in your journey as a professional where you're like, I don't know if I want to keep doing this, or has it just been a continual rise throughout your career?
I don't know. I've never, because it's always made sense to me. I've never, there's been times whenever I'm up at the office till 4 a.m. and sleeping on a cot in the office. I'm going, man, I don't know, but I'm glad I didn't quit.
Right.
Talking to my mom, 6 o'clock in the morning, going, what am I doing? She's like, you just got to spend your time in the barrel and then it gets better. And I don't know how many times she's told me that.
Really?
I'm waiting for it to get better.
It will.
That's so cool.
It's a big barrel.
Every guest we've had on, when we ask a question kind of similar to that, pretty much the common response is the family support that it takes to build a business and then be successful at it after the fact.
Absolutely.
So I think it's inspiring for people to hear that whenever they might be at a low point in their business or maybe doubting themselves.
And you got to surround yourself with people, not just family, but your friends too.
Exactly.
You got to be able to, our big thing is share your wins. And that's so cliche, but it's not a brag. It is a win, and you should be able to text your friends, your best friends, and say, hey, I won today. I got this.
It's so ironic that you said that because a few weeks ago, we went on to another podcast as guests, and a gentleman rented like a big Airbnb and for his family and stuff. And it was a few hours away from here, and he's like, hey, since y'all are coming to be on the show, right after we recorded, he had a 1-year party for his podcast, right?
Nice.
And he had a lot of success with it and stuff. And there was a bunch of people at the house that came, from all over the state, right? And this one gentleman and his wife came from Tennessee.
Wow.
Right? And I said, Tennessee? And he'd never even met this guy before, right? He's just a fan. And he had been messaging him on Facebook and stuff. And he was actually kind of in the real estate business. He was like a commercial developer.
Gotcha.
And I said, man, I got to know, what encouraged you to fly across the country to go support a guy you've never met before? And he goes, you got to celebrate people's wins.
Absolutely.
He's like, this is a big deal. I love what this guy's doing. And I thought that was so impressive. But that phrase, celebrate wins, I think a world constantly filled with negativity, whether you're a starting entrepreneur or you have a current business, and there's a lot of hate out there in the world. So the little wins and celebrating them, I think those are extremely important.
And I'm all for competition. Don't get me wrong, but cooperation comes into play too. Everybody's got competitors. Everybody wants to make that sale, everything. Mm-hmm. But at the end of the day, I mean, you need to be able to go hang out with these people and, have a drink or whatever with them and look them in the eye. And I mean, if they win, they win. That's great. Yeah. It's not hurting you. And that was honestly my mindset turning over to 25 because 24 was rough. I mean, it was bad. And it was like, you know what? We're going to eliminate the negativity. We're going to, celebrate. We're going to, and so far just changing that mindset. And obviously the real estate market's done better, but it just felt like just that mental shift. And you go, okay, everything's going to be fine. We're going to get through this. And, especially in small towns, with brokerages and things like that, people talk. And so I will have agents from other brokerages call and talk, and we're bouncing ideas off of each other. And I mean, that's what we need more of because, whenever you start fighting and everything, it doesn't help anybody.
Well, we had to learn, mostly me, Sterling kind of figured it out earlier than I did, but be friends with your competitor.
Absolutely.
Because you're going to go to your competitor. They might be older than you. They might come from a heritage of something, and being able to ping that off of and go, hey, I know you didn't get this deal, but what are some tips that I can do to close it, or how can I make more money, or how can I save this guy money, whatever it may be. And having that relationship with competitors where when I got in business and then Sterling came in and kind of critiqued what I was doing, which was a good thing, but I was like, no competitor. I'm not going to be friends with any competitors, or they're the enemy. And I was wrong, because they gave us a lot of opportunity because they might have something that you want, or they might have some advice that would help you in your business.
Right.
And then you start building a relationship with them.
And a lot of it is they could offer something that your customer needs.
Right.
Your customer will only want to deal with you, but your competitor has a product that they need. So, yeah, I mean,
you got to check the ego sometimes.
Yeah, throw the pride over the shoulder and keep going. Going back to your wins, do you have any specific transactions or sales in your time that were like kind of brought you up to the next level, or were just like and you don't have to be specific about it, but
there's been a few deals that have been so difficult that when you get them to the finish line, it is just it's this monkey off your back. I mean, this huge weight, but then you're like, hell yeah, I got it done. There was one up north of San Angelo, and it had a bunch of oil wells on it. The Railroad Commission was coming in and saying they all needed to be plugged, and navigating the minefield, literal minefield of all these wells that need to be plugged on this big ranch with a ton of water that has wind potential, a bunch of different avenues. And I'm sitting there having to, basically learn on the fly. But, we got it done, and we're at the closing table, and it's just like, oh, wow, that was cool. And I've had a few like that. And every time there's hard ones, there's easy ones. We always want the easy ones, right? The guy that comes in or the lady that comes in and says, oh, I'll pay you $2 million cash for that. Cool. What, can you close in 10 days? Heck yeah, let's go.
Well, I think Einstein said it best, is there's a difference between education and experience.
Yep.
And you can read about it all you want, and you'll never, if you never experience it, then you'll never be refined at it.
Right.
And that's a thing that, as an entrepreneur, you got to figure out, like you said, learning on the fly, but being educated in it and learning how to experience in it in the right manner.
Well, and every battle makes you stronger too. And It's even that more rewarding when you are in the midst of a battle, and when you come through it, it just gives you that much more confidence as a person and a businessman to handle that next thing. And
I'll add to the cliche and say, every time you fail, it's an opportunity to learn. And it's an opportunity to grow.
Those are expensive education.
I had a very expensive education 3 weeks ago. And
really?
I will say, one thing that I tell agents, you have to be honest. Don't skirt it. And if you mess up, 17 years into the business,
Yeah.
if you mess up, you better own it.
Well, I like to say that with us, our morality has no purchase power. Like it's not for sale.
Right.
Right. And so when we go into business, we're going in as honest individuals that if we make a mistake, we're going to go fix that mistake.
Absolutely.
And when you do it right as a business owner, and it takes, our dad always told us 10 years. It takes 10 years to build a book of business. And what that is, it's not all the people that you know. It's not all the people that think you have a good deal. It's the people that know that you're going to stand behind whatever you're doing.
Well, it's consistency, right?
Yes.
Being consistent with vendors, being consistent with your customers, and then just as a consistent person, I think.
Absolutely.
And if your model of consistency is good, then I think you'll be successful in whatever you're doing. So,
What was one that y'all had? I mean, it doesn't even have to be a mistake.
like a big win or a big a big learning experience.
Either.
I think we're in the middle of a learning experience right now.
Would you like to expand on that?
I'll get back to you in 30 days.
Yeah, I'll be like the city. I'll get back to you in a month.
Yeah.
Need to go in executive session.
Shoot, I'll tell you. I mean, what is one? I would say, I'm a big proponent of. I like to feel like I know everything before. Like I want to be confident in the product before I go advertise that or a service. I want to feel confident in the service before we go advertise it, right?
Okay.
And sometimes like that can be tied to being risk averse, right? And so one of the big experiences that I learned personally early on is that I think we missed out on making some money in some areas earlier on because I didn't want to take the chance.
Sure.
Because I felt like or maybe not Harrison, but I felt like I wasn't ready. And I can look back and say, well, maybe I missed out on some money or maybe we missed out on some growth for our business. But so that's a mistake. I feel like we were there. We just didn't take the next move.
Ignorance is bliss, and I was quite blissful.
Yeah, I mean,
fair enough.
We used a lot of there's another one. I mean, pre-COVID, 2018, 2019, I wish we would have used some of our funds to purchase real estate then, right? Because in 2019, 2018 was a really hard year, first year in business. 2019 was, an upward trend for us. And I don't think anyone expected COVID to happen and really what it did to markets. But looking back, it's like, damn, we should have just bought 5 acres somewhere. I should have bought whether it's business wise or your personal, I should have bought a house in 2019 versus, and the effects of COVID. And even in 2020, we should have done a real estate deal in 2020.
Absolutely. Or at least invested in the stock market.
Or I should have done something. And I thought, this COVID deal ain't going to be, whatever. And then it just got worse and worse and worse. And interest rates were low. And real estate was soaring. And the prices were just increasing. And I was like, I don't have to wait forever now. And then the interest rates went up,
Yeah.
And so, yeah. So, I mean, it's hard to read the future, but those, business-wise, those were mistakes.
A couple of days ago, I was looking through my photos, and I went back to 2020, and I took a picture of Fox News whenever oil got to negative on the futures, and I remember where I was sitting, what I was doing, and I looked at my wife, and I was like, I don't know what this means. Like, we've never seen this. I don't know. And I mean, I still have that picture just because I was like, that is insane.
Yeah, it was just
it was a scary moment.
It never had ever existed in the U.S. history ever. And I don't even know if it's ever existed anywhere else in the world.
I don't know, but when he hit negative, I was going, guys, we got a problem.
I would say the biggest win, in my opinion, for us wasn't ever monetary. The biggest win for us was probably this year, or at least the end of last year. I can't count how many times I've heard a consumer go, y'all are higher. Your price is higher than anybody else. And he goes, I'm choosing you because of who you are.
Absolutely.
And I think there's no amount of monetary value that you could ever put towards what we have built through our name and through our actions, because you can say the world, but unless you go and follow through with actions, it doesn't mean anything.
Well, and it scares me, Harrison, saying that kind of stuff, because it's like we got a long ways to go.
Sure.
There's still roadblocks that happen, and you hope that you stay consistent through the process, and some products are the most expensive, but some products aren't, right? So there's give and take there.
But
what was y'all's first, and I'm going to equate it to a property, right? What was the first property that you're like, we got this? You're not the first property, the first transaction or whatever. It doesn't have to,
I wouldn't say that
I want to hear what yours, because I have a few in mind that
I wouldn't say it was transactional for me. It was when we were making transactions, and I was confident that we had solutions for when things went awry. And that's just having confidence in our team and confidence in the people that we've put in place and the education that we had to purchase through bad mistakes.
Yep.
I would say for me, that was the biggest thing. Through a transaction, my greatest transaction that I enjoyed the most, that I felt like, oh my gosh, we just climbed Mount Everest, was was it 22 when we sold that scraper tractor?
Yeah, that was cool.
It's a very niche machine. It's very uncommon for our brand to have it west of.
It's the biggest product New Holland makes too. It's a 700 horsepower scraper tractor. So it was exciting because forever, the name is Big Country, right? So that was the goal when it was started. It was like, we're going to rent out large equipment for oil field construction and civil construction. And so when we picked up New Holland, we still rented out that bigger stuff, but kind of condensed it down. But a lot of New Holland's portfolio was like smaller stuff. And it's like, we're Big Country selling little equipment. And so we were mid-country.
Medium.
Yeah. And so when Harrison sold that scraper package, I felt real confident. But there's like a handful of sales for me over the course of the years that kind of made me feel pretty confident. And selling guys that into a brand that they already had, like that's New Holland. They have a New Holland, they want another New Holland. That's cool. Those are recurring customers. That means you're doing a good job keeping them liking the brand, right? The customers that ran a different brand, like a Cat or a Deere or something, and you get them out of that brand, those were like little wins that just added up over time. It made you really confident in what you were doing. And that's on the sales aspect. But we do service and we do parts and we do hauling. And when like Harrison said earlier, when there's a problem that occurs, how fast and how assertive we were to taking care of the problem. And that is all about how good our employees are. And so some of my wins were when we got a really good parts person. When we got a really good service manager, when we got a really good store manager, when we had a really kick-ass technician that you could put a lot of confidence in. Because out of all the machines that we sell, I don't know a fraction of everything about them.
Right.
Neither does Harrison. I mean, we might know a lot. I can tell you a lot about a skid steer. I can tell you a lot about a row crop tractor, right? Because those are some experiences that we had early on with service. But out of everything else they make, you depend heavily on your brand and your employees. And so when I could go to sleep at night and go, oh, man, Scott, he's going to have this taken care of, or Daniel is going to like knock that job out in 4 hours tomorrow, right? That was like some of the biggest wins. And it feels like it took 3 to 4 years to just have that confidence in your service department. Because, I mean, selling things is one thing. taking care of your customer after the sale
Right.
is the hardest.
Probably
And
the
then-
most unique towards the service department. The most unique instance that has lately happened was there was a company out of Louisiana that went to New Mexico, like Carlsbad or somewhere out there where God's mainland just got forgot, and so that's still what 4 hours from here, and so we get a phone call. The service technician goes out. His name's Joe. Takes one of our big service trucks. He is specialized in. He was a cat mechanic before. He's starting on his age. He's really sharp. We got him a new truck. I mean, it's nicest truck in town. And so he goes out to this project, and he comes back and he goes, "You really need to call these guys." And so I said, "All right." So we called them, and they said, "Hey, we just want to say how much we appreciate it because we've had 3 other companies out here trying to fix this tractor. Your technician came out. He took him 15 minutes. He fixed the tractor, and we've been up and going. We've been waiting almost 2.5 months."
Yeah, so
Did
the power.
he change the oil or what?
No, he read a schematic. He plugged into it, read a schematic, fixed the sensor. And, that's the thing. These newer tractors nowadays,
Yeah.
I mean, you're half electrician over mechanic. And so just being able, reading comprehension, and that's a big issue that we've seen while hiring technicians is the reading comprehension of younger individuals coming in is so low that I go, okay, you need to be able to read and you need to be able to write and you need to understand what you're reading. And if you can't do that, then you've missed the bar entirely because everything's on a computer. There's no,
Yep.
it's
There's no TikTok video.
Yeah, you got to
for
be
it.
able to digest and diagnose and then
regurgitated.
and regurgitate it. Yeah.
I mean, that's
So-
in any industry, right?
Yeah, but I mean that's when we talk about education,
Not
the way of
McDonald's
the
flipping
world,
burgers.
and there's a lot of people with a lot of natural skill, in my opinion, for turning wrenches. Right?
Sure.
I'm not one of those people. Kind of like you were saying, like you naturally were good at real estate.
Yep.
I don't really know what I'm naturally good at, Sterling, yet, but I'm figuring.
We're getting there.
Excel spreadsheets is pretty damn good.
I like spreadsheets.
Now you're speaking my language.
So I mean, yeah, the people, in my opinion, and that's like our hardest process. We have manufacturers asking us to build new locations. Abilene, Lubbock, Midland, and our biggest barrier to entry is real estate and people.
Yep.
That's the 2 hardest ones. If I'm there, I know I can sell it. I know I can manage it. I know I can recruit. Right.
Sure.
But there's a fiscal part of it that speeds that process up. Harrison and I can go move there. We feel pretty confident in our team in San Angelo, right? We can go move to Abilene part-time and build the people up. And we could, build it up a little bit by little as far as, acquiring land or building a shop goes. And it might take another 5-6 years. But money solves a lot of problems.
Yep.
And our focus has been for like the last 7 years, let's master what we have in front of us and increase profitability without screwing customers, right?
Absolutely.
People hear increased profitability and I think their ears bleed a little bit. But it's business. You gotta figure out how to be as profitable as you can by being as best as you can, and then you figure out how to scale.
Right.
Because if you're trying to scale and you're not the best you can be, and that's why we're trying to build, a new store in San Angelo, is so we can figure out how to be the best we are here.
Sure.
Before we add on,
Yeah. I mean, it's quality over quantity.
If you were going to take an entrepreneur and go, okay, I'm going to teach you real estate, not I got to teach you all the laws of real estate. I assume that when you take on a client, you're saying, I'm going to hold your hand and we're going to do this together where you aren't going to get burned.
Yes.
Right? If you were going to do that for an individual, for an entrepreneurship, commercial real estate, what would your top 3 things be?
So actually, I'm going to call him a kid, but he's not a kid. But a guy walked up to me and said, "Hey, I'm getting into the ranch real estate business. if you had to give me one piece of advice, what would it be? And I said, you need to take as much education as you possibly can. You need to go take those classes. Don't take your bare minimum. Anybody can get a real estate license, right? I wish there were more barriers to entry to our industry, but it is what it is. And I'm telling them this, and I'm saying, there's a bunch of different classes that you can take to understand the different facets of this industry. And he goes, man, I've asked a lot of people that question, and not one person has told me education. And I think that is just a shame. Right. It's all about the money. And it's like, no. You're talking about, do you want a 3-year career, or do you want to do this? And if you want to do this, you need to lay the foundation, get your education squared away, and then it will grow. Your business will grow naturally because you know what you are talking about. And then when you hold that client's hand and go through the transaction and you master it and you get good at your craft, that person will tell their friends, and those friends will tell other friends, and it is a natural referral business. And it's the same with equipment sales. It's the same with any type of sales. You have to get good at one thing, like you said, and then build on that. You can't build a house without a foundation, right? We are
some people try
so
here.
Cliche.
Some people try in this
and that's why you need a good real estate agent.
You don't start with the roof, right? And so that I was thinking about some stuff to talk about whenever we were leading up into this, and that guy asking me that question has stuck with me. It was probably 3 or 4 months ago, and I'm like, oh my gosh. And so, I'm a Texas Realtor instructor. I teach a farm and ranch class. I've tried to branch out, and, I would say 5 years into the business, and I'm sure you all have had this, especially whenever you're talking about your technicians and things like that, and trying to scale and grow is training your competition potentially, right? You're training somebody that's not loyal, anything. You get them as good as you are because you're that good of a trainer. And then they leave and go do exactly what you're doing and take your ideas. And that, so in the appraisal world, whenever I first started, the median age of an appraiser, commercial farm and ranch appraiser, was 56 years old.
That's old.
Yeah. And they're aging out, and they're not taking on trainees because they have that mentality that I'm going to train you up. I'm going to teach you what I know and get you good at this business. And then you're going to go turn around and start your own thing, and you're going to start taking clients away from me. And that has been that's everybody's problem, right? And, how do you get by that?
I would say the biggest thing about people, there's a lot of great people out there that have the same skill set as Sterling and I. And the big thing that I've had similar conversations is like, why aren't you training, predecessors? Why aren't you training somebody to help you? And they always come back to that scenario. But
why create your own competition?
And right. But the biggest thing of why people don't break out on their own, their biggest competitor is their own mind.
Yep. And
they go, well, there's too much risk. I can't do that. And so they end up just staying and doing that. And that's great. People get happy and they like the comfortability where they're at, because you have to get real uncomfortable to be an entrepreneur.
Yes.
And you got to be okay with having nothing for a long time.
Absolutely.
We're still in the nothing.
Well, we got a lot of debt.
Yeah.
Yeah, you might see a lot of material things, but it's mostly a lot of debt. And yeah, you hope to scale it, but without taking someone on and not creating your competition. I think when I was shooting horses in college, that was a big deal. I worked for a few different farriers and apprenticed for them, and they would ask me, and it wasn't until later, because it took a long time to develop my skills to where I could be a hand,
Right.
They definitely weren't worried about me leaving at first.
Right.
But that was common in the horseshoeing industry. This guy worked under me for 3 years. He lives in the same town, and now he's taking half my clients.
Right.
At the end of the day, they weren't ever worried about me doing that, because I told them, don't worry, this is a temporary deal for me. This is just trying to pay bills,
On the adverse side, Sterling's like, I'll go back to chewing horses. Never told me that.
I don't know how you get around that. You know, we talk about our dad a lot on this because he's been a huge influence in our lives. And he talks about when he was starting as a subcontractor, he was a sub for a big company in Big Spring for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
And then when he let his first job, and he got his first job as a, what do they call it? Prime contractor. Yeah. The guy he was a sub for forever, which was a kind of a different line of work. Wasn't really, I mean, it was kind of similar, but it wasn't quite. And he said, Kesey, I like you, but we're done doing business. You know, I'm done helping you. Mm-hmm. I'm not going to sub you out on any of my products because you're competition now. And he had a man-to-man competition, like, you know, face-to-face conversation with him when that happened. And, you know, I always reflect that conversation that my dad told me about that happened 50 years ago, you know, when he was a young man. And I think that's a choice of the entrepreneur, the businessman, right? I think in economics, I mean, competition is good for the market, right? Competition creates a healthy market. So I don't know. I don't think there's a good answer.
There's not.
I don't think there's a solution. I mean, other than if you got in like contract law, you know, people make other people sign non-competes.
Yeah.
But then it's really hard. Right now, I mean, it's hard to get labor. You go try to sign, hey, by the way, if you're not good at this or I fire you or whatever, you don't ever get to do this for the next X amount of years.
Yeah,
that's a real advantageous sales pitch for somebody to come work for you.
Well, so I had one thing happen in our appraisal company. So I'm a partner in our appraisal company now. And we had an appraiser that really thought about, you know, hey, I may want to branch off and go do my own thing. And the lack of understanding of how much it costs to run a business is also a conversation that is very difficult to have because they come to you and they're laying their cards on the table. And you got to tell them, okay, listen, to do on my sales side, you know, if you need this type of file storage, iCloud system, blah, 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 it's going to cost you $6,000 a month. Do you think you're going to have the sales to cover that? Oh, by the way, you got rent. You got utilities. You got
insurance,
everything.
Fuel,
yes,
car.
You know, okay, so now we're talking $200,000 a year to run a business. Are you selling enough, or appraising enough, or whatever industry? Are you doing enough to cover those bills? Because that's your break-even point, and you're making no money.
Well, that's your break-even. You're actually minus.
Yeah.
When you're at your break-even, in my opinion, you're still negative because you got property taxes due. And you have your other expenses that you haven't even accounted for yet.
Right.
But it always
Something
seems
breaks.
like there's about 10% you're not accounting for.
Yep.
And something breaks, and
We call that a contingency.
so you really, in my opinion, you really have to, like, your goods and services, you got to be either doing X amount of volume or a higher percentage.
So,
and if you want to have any profitability, and then once you have paid for assets, then you can leverage your assets to scale.
Sure.
You know?
So I asked, when people come to me like, I want to be a business owner, I said, okay, well, let's have this is going to be a fun conversation.
Yeah.
Right? I'm going to hit you with some reality. And we had an actual attorney we were having a conversation with the other day, and he explained something very well. He goes, all right, we're going to start from 30,000 feet. And we're going to get closer to the ground. And I really like that analogy because you get from a really broad spectrum and you get really narrow. And the first question is, how much do you want to take home at the end of the day? And they'll be like, I want to make $100,000. I said, do you think off the bat you can sell $1 million, or what the hell you're trying to do? And they're like, well, $1 million, that's a lot of money. I was like, all right, well, the average business is running between 8 and 12% nettable profit.
Yep.
And you're lucky to get 12, realistically, especially if you're a novice.
I feel like the average is less.
And under $10 million companies, it's between 8 and 12%. Over $500 million is between 1 and 3.
Yeah, but most business owners, their goal is like 500,000. You know,
right? But after take home, it's, you know, if you can net between 8 and 12, like, you're doing solid. And
so 10%
Yeah.
for easy math.
Yeah.
I know what you're saying.
100,000.
100,000. You need $1 million.
right off the bat. And they're like, oh man, I don't know if I can do that. And I said, okay, well, can you start for 30,000? And they're like, what do you mean? It's like, okay, if you cut everything that you enjoy about your life out and you just ate, worked, and endured. Could you make it on 30 grand? Well, no, I need like $60,000. Okay. If you make it on $60,000, that means you got to sell $500,000 worth of stuff.
Yep.
You know, and then you got to be real fine tuned to make sure that you're coming home with the bills paid, because you don't get paid as soon as you make a transaction.
No.
People, that is a flawless thing that people are like, oh yeah, as soon as I make a transaction, I get paid. We've had Matthew Neff on here. He got scammed for X amount of thousands of dollars on credit cards. You got people that don't pay their bills, checks in the mail. That's a famous one. Checks in the mail. I didn't know the post office could move that slow. You know, what they do, break all their vehicles.
You've been a wall Texas lately?
Yeah. And so, you know, there's so many excuses. So at the end of the day, yeah, you might have made all these sales, but it might take 120 days before you even get paid.
Yep.
And how many people come work for you that you teach and you invest in that leave and become successful on their own, right? I mean,
I can actually answer that question.
What do you think?
0.
See, there you go. I mean, that might be
I've trained on the appraisal side of things. I've trained 2.5 people, and
how do you train half of a person? They bitch.
No, he was half a brain. But those 2 still work for our company. One's a partner. One will be a partner probably.
Okay, cool.
And so the ones that
So they didn't leave to become competition.
They didn't leave. And so, and anyone that did leave, that maybe I wasn't directly training them or whatever, they are not in this business. They're done.
They fused out.
Oh, we're going to go find something else to do. Can't make enough money doing this. Well, I mean, whenever you stick with our company, we're investing so much money per month to make your life easier to do your job. And
so from a consumer standpoint, why choose you?
17 years of experience goes a long way. I've got designations and certifications, all the things, we can rattle them all off. I'm most proud of what's called an MAI. It's the highest designation in appraisal that you can get. And it is worldwide through the Appraisal Institute. Whenever I got mine, there were only 12,000 in the history of the program and everybody. So I'm literally the only MAI. There's one other MAI broker.
What is
that
acronym?
Yeah, what does that stand for?
Member of an appraisal institute. Some people call it master of appraisal.
Okay.
It is.
I like master of appraisal.
Yeah, me too. But it's member of appraisal institute, and man, it was a 5-year process.
Wow.
I can't countless hours. It's kind of like a master's or a PhD or whatever, where you have to do a demonstration report, you have to defend it, you have to, it has to go through a bunch of different requirements. So all that said, the appraisal side of things has given me so much information and, it's called ammunition for the sales side of things. I have people all over the state that call me for advice.
You vertically integrated.
Yes.
Yeah.
And, whenever you have this massive commercial broker, whatever, out of wherever that knows your name because of, projects that I've worked on and that our company has worked on and that I've personally sold and done. That's my biggest pitch. Like, I'm here for you, but you need to understand what all I offer.
Right.
And that is a wealth of knowledge.
Yeah. I mean, you can buy people's time, but that knowledge, they had to go invest that in themselves.
Absolutely.
And so when a consumer comes to you, your biggest sales pitch is not, oh, well, I got all these connections, I got all this stuff. It goes, I'm going to take care of you from birth to grave. I want to make sure that when you stumble, I catch you.
Right.
And I, personally, I'm sold. I'm in. Yeah. Let's do it.
I mean, you're talking about wanting to be overly prepared, right? And I walk into every potential interview or conversation with a consumer overly prepared. I have all of their stuff already printed off. I pretty much know what, the history of the property already. I have it mapped. I have everything laminated. I have it ready to go to show the preparation to the consumer. You have people that walk up and just want to talk. And it's like, no. This requires research. I mean, we're talking millions of dollars. You need to know that I'm well prepared and well suited for you to hire me. I love interviewing because you'll get those phone calls. Oh, I'm going to interview multiple brokers. Awesome, that's my favorite thing. And I'm not batting 1,000, but I'm pretty high up there in success rate.
Right.
Whenever I get in front of somebody and show them everything and ask them off the wall questions, and they're going, I've never been asked how many water troughs are out here. Well, we need to know that.
Yeah.
And if somebody didn't ask you that, they don't know what the heck they're doing.
How many straws?
That was close. That was close.
You can release an F-bomb.
We've done on occasion. And some Coors Lights.
Yeah.
So what would you say going into the real estate, what was the biggest adversity that you encountered that you're like, I did not see that one coming?
So, and any agent will tell you this. Whenever you take your classes and you take your test and all the stuff, they prep, they prop you up and all this stuff, and it's a big pep rally and cheerleaders and blah, blah, blah. But whenever you get turned out into the wild, like I said, like I like to call it, how do I generate business? They don't teach you how to generate business. And so you are relying on that broker that you put your license under to train you and teach you how to do this. They should be, not all do, but they should be monitoring X amount of transactions. I make sure that I monitor at least 10 transactions in every, so residential, farm and ranch, commercial. Because, it's a direct reflection on you and your business.
Right.
Right. And so, that's the biggest deal is how do I do this now? And whenever I can write the contract. Oh yeah, I'm excited. I got a buyer. Oh, we're going to buy 123 Main Street. It's going to be amazing. It's $150,000. This is my first deal. It's amazing. What do I do after I write the contract? Oh, inspections. Oh, okay. We need to make sure liens, all the stuff. We got to get it to title company. We got to clear the title. We got to figure out, surveys, all the things that involve a real estate transaction. Whenever you get your license, you have no idea about. And that is a massive barrier of success in the industry. You can get in it, but to be good at it, you better hitch your wagon to somebody that knows what they're doing.
Did you already own a home beforehand, or did you?
Yeah, I bought my first house in 2008 in College Station.
Okay, so you had used a realtor before you bought your first?
I have a real estate license.
So you did do that. Okay.
I did it with the help of attorneys. It was back in
2008 was a good year to buy real estate.
I wish I was old enough.
Yeah, right. That was our biggest mistake.
No, that was back in the assumable loan days.
Yeah.
I assumed a loan at I think it was 7.25 or something like that.
Yeah.
We got it done in a week, and the title company in College Station was like, I don't know how the hell y'all did this, but congrats.
At 13 years old, that was the biggest mistake we did. We should have seen some loans.
In 2008, how many pages did you have to sign on that loan? Because
it was an inch and a half thick.
So it was still a lot of paper
Tons,
then.
yeah.
Okay, because you hear people say that, I never had to sign this much stuff back then,
It's been long. It's always been that much.
I was curious.
You know what's wild is you can go buy a house and it's a stack of paper. You can go buy the same amount, more debt on a piece of iron. It's like, hey, you got this 1 page credit. And you can hide this. You can't hide a house. Unless it's a mobile house.
Drive this some bitch out of here.
An RV.
Yeah.
It's like boat loans. Boat loans will give you a 30-year note on a freaking boat. It's like, I remember when we were in college and someone would be like, yeah, we're taking the 28-foot Mastercraft out. I'm like, how the hell does that guy have a brand new Mastercraft? That boat's $290,000.
He can't even pay for a sandwich.
Yeah.
And he's like,
he asked me for money the
he
other day.
financed it for 30 years. That's how he did it.
That's nuts. Your truck loans right now, you can get a 7-year.
So they're moving them to 8.
Yeah.
We're seeing 8-year
Oh
loans
my
on
gosh.
stuff.
So when I was talking
products get more expensive, dollars worth less. They got to stretch it out.
So when I was talking to a consumer, and he's been in the business for a long time, and I asked him, I said, how's your business going? He goes, man, I've hit some adversity. We're trying to scale. He goes, we've been in business for 28 years. And he goes, this is the hardest it's ever been to scale. And the first thing I asked him is, I said, how are you scaling? He goes, well, I borrowed this money for this equipment, and now I don't, now I'm going to have to refinance it because I actually aligned with a predatory lender. And a predatory lender is kind of a skewed thing to say.
Sure.
But in this instance, I think he's probably right. I think this is a predatory lender. They want to make it as long as possible, get as much interest. It's a high rate. And I was like, all right, this is what we're going to do. I got 3 banks. We're going to take all these loans and we're going to spread these out in individual notes. We're going to take that risk. We're going to put it in 48 months. And I said, we're going to take this from a 60-month. We're going to put it in 48. It's going to be hard on your cash flow. But at the end of the day, you're going to have higher residuals. And I think what's happening is people are kind of doing that, 1920s, 1929 model of, oh, you mean I can just put it on as many, months as possible and make it work?
Right.
They're not looking at the numbers. And
Well, that's the Dave Ramsey method,
like, that's not bad if you use it correctly.
Right.
If you go, and I was told this, and I love this in any schedule of debt, because if you can pay it off in a year, you sprint, you can rent a jet to go get it, right? To the bank to go get your note. If it takes 24 months, you run to the bank. If it takes 36 months, you start to walk. If it takes 48 months to get it paid back, you might skip. You might just lollygag, get over there. If you have to go to 60, 72, 84, and this is on depreciating assets, this isn't really, you can take the same principle to, buying a business or whatever. If you have to go to 6 years, what depreciable asset right now are you seeing that you're going to keep for your lifetime? And this isn't, pre-2000s. People were taking assets and they're like, oh, I'm going to have this pickup for the next 30 years. Yep. I mean, how many pickups do you know that your dad had or your grandpa had? And you're like, I might still have that.
I think one's still on the ranch.
Right? Imagine a 2016. You think that truck's going to be around?
No.
And so you're saying that I'm going to keep this? I'm going to keep this truck for the next X amount of years, and it's not going to break, or I'm not going to put $20,000-$30,000 into it, or at least 30 or 40% of its value,
Or it runs out its tax value.
right?
You have to buy
tax value.
something. Go ahead, keep going.
So if we look at business as a cash flow, not necessarily we have all these assets, but if we look at it we're going to be cash poor for X amount of months, but we're going to have all this equity because when the economy turns, all those people that were sitting cash high and equity high in 2019 did really great going
Absolutely.
into 21, 22. The guys who bought in 22 because they're like, oh, well, it's 3% interest and this is an inflated rate, it'll play. Yeah, they might have bought on 60 months. They're going to have to carry that machine because of the inflated price, the full term, to make it pencil.
You can make, counter, right?
Yeah.
You can still turn a profit and make a bad purchase.
Sure.
If you're a contractor and, you get awarded a job and you need this asset to help
Right.
get that job completed because you're going to make 3 times what you spent, then that's a necessary evil. Like, that's just something you have to do.
Right.
But in that specific situation, why wouldn't you just lease that machinery?
If it's a long duration project.
Yeah.
Generally what he's referencing there is if you have a project that's over a year going into 2 years, then yeah.
Gotcha.
So, moving from this,
When do you sell real estate?
when do you sell real estate?
Yeah, let's say, because people get attached to
24
things.
hours a day. What are you talking about?
No, if I'm a guy that, or I'm a customer that likes, the house I bought, right?
Yeah.
I love the house I bought, but I got in it good. When is the time for that person to sell, right?
That is
Completely, like the market's good, right?
sure. Nobody knows. It's to each individual person.
Subjective.
Yeah, it's your situation is going to be different than your situation is different than mine. So there's no correct answer to that. Now, if you have a cash flowing asset, say multi-tenant retail center, and you have a different project that you're wanting to get into, and you gauge the market and your cap rates are low and therefore your values are high, then yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's you can't paint it with a broad brush. It's to each individual person. We're seeing a lot of these big ranches that have been inherited after 4, 5, 6 generations, and they've never even been on it. They're in Nashville or Houston or whatever, and they have their own lives. And I mean, they don't want to ranch anymore. And it's at that time, maybe that's the right call, is to sell it.
When is a good time, or what type of property would be a good investment for somebody trying to get a rental property or
get into agriculture?
Or agriculture or a commercial piece of real estate?
I can't remember who told me this. It was a long time ago, but he was buying a ranch, and we're sitting there going through the feasibility period and all this stuff. And I said, talk to me. What's going on? What are your reservations about? That's one of my favorite questions to ask, is what are your reservations about this? And he goes, I got to figure out how to make this thing pay for itself. And I never thought of that. And so my advice on different property types is you need to look at cash flow properties. I own a storage facility, and it pays for itself, literally. I mean, my note is X, my payment is this, and I get paid this, and it covers it, and so it pays itself off.
So would an Airbnb, like everybody was buying an Airbnb 1920?
Man, I'll be honest with you, I don't do rent houses. I have had rent houses. They are a pain. If I was counseling somebody that wanted to get into real estate, I would say stay away from rent houses.
Is it because of the renter laws, or what?
It's a mess, and I don't think we have enough time. To be honest with you, there's
to the next episode.
There's
Volume 2,
multi-level problems there. But I mean, people make it work. Don't get me wrong. I just personally would look at cash flow stuff. Look at your smaller storage facilities. Look at office buildings that have a lease type deal. I mean, it all depends on what you can afford.
Is it better? Is there more profit in buying a raw piece of property and building what your consumer base would be, or buying a pre-existing building and renovating it?
That depends on the market and construction costs at today's rate, right? It's, you look at what would it cost me to buy versus what would it cost me to build, and could you build exactly what you want? Yeah, and there's value in use, and that's what a lot of people.
Utilization is key.
Skip over. This is for your business, and you are going to use it for X amount of time, and then you can sell it. There is a gap in there. There's a value in use, and so if you build the pool of your dreams and you live there for another 15, 20 years, you're not going to get dollar for dollar back, but you got to use it for 15, 20 years. And there is massive amounts of value in that. So I know I didn't directly answer your question, but it's just, we'd have to get property specific.
Right.
And, whether we're talking about
region, geographical.
Absolutely. I appreciate y'all having me. This was fun.
Thanks for coming on, Sterling. I think a lot of people will learn from your experience in real estate. I know certainly I wish I would have paid more attention to it as a younger man coming into the business world, especially. I didn't really start even thinking about purchasing property till I was probably in the middle of college, right? Kind of right towards the end, you're like, I'm about to get out into the real world, and I wish I would have paid more attention to that even in high school. So hopefully people listening to this will educate themselves on it. And just before we teeter off here, what's one piece of advice you'd give out to a young entrepreneur?
Get ready for some long nights, and don't be scared of doing that. I've referenced it earlier. Be willing to sleep at the office work till 4 a.m., get good at what you do, and it will only get better from there. Spend your time in the barrel.
Yeah, it's a nasty barrel.
Yeah.
How do people get in touch with you?
Are we giving out cell phone numbers?
Well, you can. Yeah.
I'll wear one.
Yeah. So my company is Sterling Property Group, powered by Keller Williams here in San Angelo. Our appraisal company is Paramount Property Analysts out of College Station. I'm pretty easy to find. Every realtor in the world has, social media, and
do you have a social media handle?
It's Sterling Property Group. It's Facebook / Sterling Property Group, Instagram, all the things, and they can look me up.
There you
Awesome.
go.
Well,
Thanks
thank you for
coming
coming on.
Oh, thanks, guys. Appreciate it.